is the Revisionary Podcast with your host, Juan Carlos. The Revisionary Podcast.
Hello, Revisionaries. How are you? And welcome to another episode of the Revisionary Podcast. And as always, I'm your host, Juan Carlos. So today, I'm actually really excited because there are rumors out there that I will neither confirm nor deny. But there is a possibility that we might be doing another live episode. But here's the cool thing about this live episode. If and when we do it, if it's true, because I'm not confirming that it is, it would be done via the Bullhorn app, and you have to make sure that you're following us on social media or else you won't know when it's happening because I'm not promoting it on the podcast if it is in fact happening. So make sure you're following us because if you know, you know. Otherwise, then you don't know. So that's Revisionary Podcast on Instagram, Revisionary Pod on Twitter, and we're also on Facebook under, www.facebook.com/Revisionary Podcast. So make sure you're following us so that you don't miss out if this is in fact a true rumor. And if today's day one of being a revisionary for you, the way this podcast works, we bring on guests, usually comedians, who tell a nonfiction story about their lives. After which, I give them an opportunity to tell the same exact story, except this time they can change any facts or details that they'd like about that story. So today we actually have Sarah Garner coming on and joining us on the Revisionary Podcast, which is pretty exciting for me because according to Facebook, Sarah and I have been best friends forever. Well, that's not exactly true. But Facebook thinks that I know her, or at least Facebook thinks that we've known each other well because she's been popping up for years. So I'm actually excited to finally meet her and sit down and talk to her and see what she's about. You know, she's one of those people who I've heard a lot about. And when you are in New York City and you do stand up, sometimes you hear about people through reputation before you hear about, before you have an opportunity to meet them. So she's somebody who everyone speaks highly of. So I'm actually very excited to get to know her. And you know what? Let's just get to it. Without further ado, let's see if we can get Sarah on the line. Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so excited to have you today.
I am thrilled to be here. I'm so excited. And by here, I mean my house, but whatever.
Right. I am not at her house because we're COVID safe. I just want to clarify that. But we are together virtually.
Virtually.
No, so this is really cool. It's funny because I was just telling Sarah, Sarah's one of those people who I've heard about for years, but we actually haven't had the opportunity to cross paths. And here we are today. So that's amazing.
You know, I'm really excited about it. I'm pissed that we haven't gotten to know each other before this, right? So let's make sure that doesn't happen again, okay?
Deal. All right, we'll continue this. So what have you been up to for the past few months?
Other than crying occasionally and being on Zoom a million hours a day, I've actually just started my own podcast. It's a little podcast to podcast synergy here.
Loving it.
Yeah, called Cheers for Queers, and it's about gender and sexuality and all of the ways that can manifest in different people's stories along those lines. So that's what I've been doing. And then yelling into the void at parks, trying to still do a little stand up. That's pretty much it.
How's that been going, all the park stuff? Because I've also had high risk people in my family, so I haven't tried not to expose myself. Yeah. So I haven't done any of the park shows. How's that going?
The first time I did it was the best feeling. It felt like the first time you do stand up because it had been 4 months, 5 months or something crazy. Right. And so I was like, oh my God, this is what I needed. But it's so weird being outside when you're used to being in a basement, in a closed space. You can't hear what people's reactions are when you're outside. You're am I bombing? Am I crushing? I actually have no idea. And then you there have been times that I've done rooftop shows and I get off stage and I'm like, man, I really did not do well. And they're like, are you kidding me? People were laughing like crazy and you just can't hear. Right. So the timing's kind of off. But honestly, it's nice to it's beautiful. Fall's my favorite season. And so the fact that I get to sit in a park rather than in a dingy basement feels really good to me. So I'm like, that's, you know what? Fine. Laughs are laughs, whatever.
Honestly, it sounds to me like you're describing a Zoom show, because that's what it feels like. You know, you're just there, you're making jokes, and you're like, is it funny? And you look for people's reactions, and then they're like, oh, yeah, I think that's a laugh. All right, cool. Keep going. Send me those little emojis. It's
like I hosted this like fundraiser thing for like a bunch of political candidates on Saturday, and it was great. Everyone was so sweet, but I thought I like bombed the whole time because I kept saying like, come off mute, like, hey, come off mute, or I'm going to think I'm bombing the whole time, and it's not going to be fun for anybody, I promise. And like people were halfway there, and I think I did okay, but yeah, it's hard to actually know.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And look, let's be honest here. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I'm 100% in this for my ego. So if you guys aren't laughing, my ego is just not getting stroked enough. You know what? I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Oh my God. Nobody starts doing stand-up because they're okay or like themselves. You know what I mean? Like it's not a thing that happens.
Actually,
compensating.
I love myself a little too much, and I just wanted to share that with the world, okay? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Wow. I'm going to get so much hate mail for this.
Oh my God. If that's the worst thing that you as a stand-up can say, I'm telling you, you have nothing to worry about.
No, look, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I generally think I'm a good person. I really do.
Seem like it.
But there have been times where I said something, I was like, oh, that wasn't my best self. I didn't mean it in that way, you know? So, whatever, it happens. You know, you say nothing, something's going to sound bad.
Yeah, and then you stay awake till 3 a.m. for the next 6 months about it.
Oh, that's you too? I thought it was
That's me. I'm like, oh my God, that thing I said 6 months ago. They must hate me.
Yeah, and then eventually you start a podcast called the Visionary Podcast where you let people talk about those moments and how you would do it differently.
I have so many. I had to go through the Rolodex. Is that a reference people still get? I'm 33.
For these young kids out there, that means she went through her notes.
Checked my notes, guys.
Yeah. You know, I almost said your aim list, your buddy list, but that's not it.
They wouldn't know that either.
Thank God there are older people who listen to this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, come on, guys.
Wow, so this has been fun, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Sarah, I'm going to cede the stage. Go ahead and tell us your story.
I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and so like it's kind of like a place everybody knows everybody. And then when I think it was like right before graduation from high school, I had started hooking up with this guy, and I don't know why, because we like had nothing in common. I don't think we liked each other that much,
right?
But we like decided that we were in love. I think there was like just a lot of alcohol involved and like a lot of weed. Like there was just like drugs, hormones, like all of those, like small town. I don't know anything better. And so we decided that we were like in love with each other. And so we spent like the whole summer together before school. And I was supposed to go to Chicago for college. And he was supposed to go to Arizona for college. And it was like at the end of the year, we already knew this information. Mm-hmm. And so we spent like all summer together, like boned a lot. I lost my virginity to him like that summer, which again, I think like, I just feel like every dumb small town girl loses her virginity when she's 17 before going to college. She's like, now's the time. I'm a grown up, you know?
Right.
And so we decided that we were like in love, and rather than doing the reasonable thing, when we were going to college, both in opposite parts of the country, rather than ending it, we decided to do like a long distance relationship. for whatever reason.
Had you ever wanted to be in a long distance relationship before, or was this just a spur of the moment decision?
It was a spur of the moment decision. I think it was like I had never thought that I would be in a long distance relationship. I'd never considered it. I think I had always been somewhat reasonable about it. Like, oh, they never work. And also, this sounds terrible. Why would I want to never see the person I'm dating? But it like, and before like we were set to leave, I think we had never thought that we were going to do a long distance relationship.
Right.
But something about like August, you're like 18, you're like about to move to a new place where you don't really know anybody. And you're like, okay, this makes sense. This thing that makes zero sense actually makes sense now.
Right.
And so, yeah, so we decided to do that. And it was really dumb. It was like, not just, if there are young people, it was just dumb. It was not smart, you know? I like thought maybe, I don't know what I thought. I don't know.
You know, what's worse is I've seen people, I remember especially my freshman year of college, there were people who chose their college because their significant other had chosen to go to the college. And those were the people I was like, yikes, I hope this works out.
Totally. And like, that's the funny thing, right? Is because I always thought, you know, I was never like one of those girls growing up that like thought about their wedding, like thought about getting married, thought about like who their partner would be or whatever.
Right.
Spoiler, that usually means you're gay.
Oh, is that how you know?
It's one of the indicators, science says. I'd never thought about that. And like, I specifically chose to go to Chicago because I was like, oh, this is going to be a new experience. I'm going to be away from my hometown. I'm not going to get trapped in like all the small town stuff that I like hated all this time. I'm not picking a college because of my friends or because of a boy or because of my parents or anybody. I'm picking it because I want to be here. And so I had like made that decision consciously at the same age, you know, and I still, for whatever stupid reason, decided that I needed to hold on to this relationship, you know?
I mean, how much of it do you think was the, I guess, attachment of having lost your virginity to him?
I think that's a lot of it.
Okay.
I think I think that's a lot of it. And I kind of put it together before that, but I didn't really put it together until you just said that. So, oh my gosh, are you a therapist? Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mom.
I'm a Facebook therapist. You're welcome.
It's so true. Like you have like sex in general, I think you have like weird hormonal attachments to people.
Right.
That you sometimes like can't control. And then when you're that young and it's like your first time having sex and you actually like you grow up in a place where like, I don't know, for me, like I was always told that sex was a big deal. And then I started having it and I was like, oh, this doesn't matter. And so I think that combination, you like think that you're supposed to be with the person that you have sex with for the rest of your life, even if you like don't consciously think that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. That does make sense.
Yeah. So I think that probably had a lot. And I think the other thing that I think had a lot to do with it was like the fear of leaving. And so wanting to hold on to something.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I was like afraid to leave on some level. And then so you try to like desperately hold on to a thing that is actually a train wreck. And like now you can see that, but like you're like any sense of stability, because I've decided to like remove all stability, because I'm in this like huge transitional period. So I'm going to hold on to this like one thing that feels like it's like the easiest thing to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. So what happened next? So you're in Chicago going to school. He's in Arizona. What happened?
So yeah, so we did long distance for like most of that year, which is crazy. I think we broke up. I think I'm going out of order here, but I think we ended up breaking up like April of that year or something wild. Like that's a long time.
Yeah, that's over a year, right? That's a year and a half.
It's close. It was like close to a year. And so the whole first semester, we didn't see each other until October when I got like a fall break. And for whatever reason, I decided to spend the money I earned as a part-time nanny on a plane ticket to Arizona. Why? And so it's October. I go to Arizona. I'm there for like, I don't know, like 4 days or whatever. We like barely left the stupid like dorm room. It was like such a like stupid trip, but we like thought we loved each other.
Right.
And then I think for his second semester, so he hated Arizona. Mm-hmm. And like we can dive into what this says about both of us as individuals. I stayed in Chicago. I was like, I signed up to go here. Like, I'm staying here. He hated being at his school in Arizona. And so he actually like, pretty much the minute he got there, he like wanted to transfer to go back to a school in Ohio. And so I think he ended up going to like the college closest to us. Mm-hmm. But he was like, I gotta get out of here. And it's crazy because I think like, oh, is that my fault? Like, did I ruin his first semester so that he like left this really good, like more prestigious school to go somewhere else? Like that, like, is that my fault? Did I do something wrong there? You know? And so I think about that too, right? Of like, am I part of the reason? I mean, I'm a narcissist, but like, so like, of course I'm the reason. But like, would he have been able to adjust better if we had just been like, okay, bye. Like, this is your new life. See you later. You know?
Mm-hmm. No, I do know. I understand that completely. Did he give you any specifics as to what he hated about it?
I think he hated that he didn't know anybody. And I was like, and it's weird because like, I also didn't like that I didn't know anybody when I started school, but I was like, well, I'll meet people. And he was like, well, I don't know anybody and I miss my friends. And it's like, well, yeah, you knew that if you were going to go across the country, right? Like, like you knew you weren't going to know anybody when you signed up for this, right? I think he just like overestimated his ability to deal. I probably did too.
Look, I hope this doesn't come across as judgy, but like, I also feel that that's the best part about going someplace new, because I was having this conversation yesterday with somebody. I feel like sometimes we don't account for point of reference. You know, when you've known someone for so long, there are things about you and who you are as a person that they will never be able to look past. So they will never see you for who you truly are today in the now. But when you meet someone new, you get to be who you are now after you've cleared all these hurdles and matured as a person. And that's beautiful.
Oh, it is why I've moved 3 times in my life, like big moves to new cities. It's because I'm like, oh, now I get to be who I actually am, right? It feels, I mean, I think it's hard. It's like a weird balance too. And when, you know, I don't know where you grew up or anything, but like, I grew up in a pretty insular, you know, smaller town where like people know each other. Like, I go home to the grocery store and I see people that I still know. Thank God I dyed my hair purple, and so they don't recognize me so much. But like, you know, you still see people you know. And when you've had the same friends since you were 5 years old, you forget how to make friends, right? Like, you forget what it actually means to have to make a new friend.
Right.
And I think he didn't realize that it wasn't just going to come naturally like it did in kindergarten.
I mean, I grew up in New York City. I'm from the Bronx.
Small town.
Huh?
Small town.
Tiny, you know, for those of you guys who've never heard of the Bronx, it's this beautiful tropical beachside property with luscious green trees and beautiful blue waterways. Anywho.
Y'all do have a beach, though. So,
I mean, kind of, yeah. No, I'm not lying. We really have beaches and trees. Fun fact. By the way, I don't mean to sidetrack too much, but fun fact. The Bronx is actually the greenest borough in New York City. A lot of people don't know that. We have the most parks. Thank you very much.
I believe it.
I'm not lying.
Big parks.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
I'm not lying about this. These are all true things. Now, the water is blue, but is the sand clean? Conversation. But I didn't talk about the sand. I said we had beautiful trees and water, all right? But anywho, bringing it back. My point was that, my oldest friend, we've known each other since we were 10. So, yeah, I have some friends that have known me since I was 10. But as a result, I grew up growing up in a place so large, I didn't have that small town, everybody knew, people in my neighborhood knew me. You know what I mean? The local guy at the bodega, he knew me, but outside of that, I really didn't have that small town experience that I do hear from people who grew up in smaller towns, especially people from the Midwest.
Yeah, it's like a thing. It's weird. I still have friends that I grew up with. I still have a group of friends from the time I was 10, right? And in some ways, it's so comforting because there's that. Just like you want to be able to reinvent yourself when you meet new people, there's also something nice about I don't have to tell you all the crap that went in to make this thing. I can just, you already know it because you were next to me when it happened, Right. There's something nice about that. I don't know. It's funny because I wonder what chances. I think the reason that I picked this story and the reason that I went back and forth. I was like, I have to have a better story than this. But the reason I picked it is because I just wonder. I was thinking about all the times in my life that I think I consciously prevented myself from growing in some way. And I feel like this is a story where I picked. It wasn't the easy way, really, because long distance isn't easy, but it felt in some ways like an easy way out rather than just dealing with the tough emotions that come from leaving where you grew up.
No. Is there any part of you that feels that you fell into the long-term relationship because in some ways it made the transition of leaving home a little easier in that, he wasn't around, but it wasn't like you were quote unquote on your own because you always had a partner that you could talk to or should talk to because you were in a relationship.
I 100% think it was that. It was I didn't want, God forbid, I feel bad about having to do something hard, right? It was a weird way, I think, of trying to protect myself rather than just feeling those feelings and getting through it. I was how can I hold on to home in some way? Mm-hmm. And I picked literally, honestly, the worst way to hold on. I don't know, call my mom more. That feels right. Call my best friend more. But I picked this, for whatever reason, this way of holding on to home and to the past, so that I didn't have to deal with you're actually going through a million transitions at once,
Right. So, okay. So now you've gone to Arizona and I know you said you didn't leave the dorm, but how did you guys get along when you were there?
It was fine. I actually don't really remember many specifics other than we boned a lot and didn't leave the dorm. And it was Arizona in October. It was beautiful. I was what am I doing? I think I went running every day, and that was it. But he also had a very sedentary lifestyle. I'm pretty active, and he had a very sedentary lifestyle. And so he was totally content, staying in his room all the time. And I just decided I was too. And so we got along fine. I think we didn't really start fighting. And the fact that we actually should have never gotten together didn't surface until probably that winter. I remember I went to California for part of winter break because my aunt and uncle live out there. And so my family and I went out there. And that was when, it's funny, we were long distance all this time, right? But somehow that long distance exposed all these weird cracks in the relationship. And so we were fighting on and off throughout like from then until we broke up, pretty much.
What kind of cracks started to surface?
That I probably at some deep level didn't like him.
Fair enough.
And same for me, right? Like it just was like an impulsive decision to get in the relationship. It was an impulsive decision to keep it going, and and we just probably weren't that compatible as people. We had like different lives, we had like slightly different like values and things we cared about. Like I was pretty studious and like wanted to do a lot of homework and like wanted to do really well at school, and like he wasn't and didn't want to, like would have preferred to just drop out of school but felt like he had to go. Stuff like he didn't really want to like sit and watch a documentary, whereas like I wanted to do that. Not to make myself sound good, like I suck as a person in general, but we just have like vastly different interests, and I think what brought us together was like this weird transition time and sex, and that's it. And that can only last so long, no matter how strong the hormones are,
Right. So, okay, so you did that, you went to Arizona, you guys started growing apart. I guess what happened, like how did your relationship evolve from there? Also, given that you were long distance, were you not developing socially in college, or like were you staying in your dorm? What was that like?
Yeah, I think that's the crappiest part of it. Like I wasn't really developing socially at college. So I think like I did a lot of staying home. I did a lot of crying. I lost like a lot of weight. And I just wasn't happy in general. And so I think that was part of it too, that I don't think necessarily that was the reason I was unhappy, but I think it allowed me to stay in that spiral of unhappiness. And so, yeah, I didn't have a great freshman year of college. And another reason we picked the story is because like if I were to do it all over again, like it wasn't because I didn't have the tools that I needed to be able to make friends. It wasn't because I didn't want to be there.
Right.
I think it's because I just allowed myself to stay in this weird like coping mechanism rather than actually saying, Sarah, like do what you need to do. This is your life now, and you either do this or you don't, I don't know. I guess I let myself become absorbed I let myself think that my sadness had to do with missing this person rather than sometimes things are just hard and you're just sad and you should deal with that rather than missing this person.
Got it. Now, when you decided to make the long-term relationship, I guess there's a lot of trust that goes into that. How did you guys work that out?
We didn't.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I mean, I am in general not a very trusting person. My parents like had a really messy divorce, which actually was, oh my gosh, we're uncovering so much. Like, it's so funny revisiting this. I'm like, oh my God. And then there was that and that and that and that.
Yeah.
My parents had a really messy divorce, and it was like, they separated like a couple years before this happened.
Okay.
And so I think maybe that had something to do with it, right? Is that I was like looking for some semblance of normalcy. And we never really had like a big talk of like, what are the rules? Like, how do we cope with this? When should I call you? Like, what's an acceptable, like, what are the ground rules for this? What's an acceptable amount of communication? Like, and so I don't think trust was there in any way. And so again, it was the most impulsive. It was a big decision to make really impulsively and stupidly.
Were either of you dating other people during this time?
I wasn't, that I can remember.
Right.
I wasn't. And I don't think he was until the very, after we broke up, he actually started, after we broke up, I think. I don't know if it happened before this.
Right.
Now I feel like I have to ask him. He started briefly dating the woman who is now his wife.
Oh.
So good for me. But they didn't get married like right away. Like they broke up and then got back together and whatever. And he actually ended up dating my childhood best friend as well. Like a few months after we broke up. So he dated this girl who's now his wife. And then they broke up, and then he dated my childhood best friend, who's still my best friend. And then they broke up, and then I think he got back together with now wife, and now they're married. And they just have a kid, and they seem really happy, and everything seems great. And I feel bad that I like messed up a whole freaking year of his life, you know, that he could have been happy with her.
Well, there's layers to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. Hold on.
Is this too much?
No, not at all. I mean, is it too much for you?
No. Oh, but this is great. Let's uncover all of this. This is better than therapy. I want everyone to hear all my therapy sessions.
Well, I feel that I'm going to take the time out for legal purposes and remind everyone that I am not a doctor. I am in no way, shape, or form, able or qualified to give any sort of, advice or mental health, remedies. So please take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Treat me like you treat your crazy uncle on Facebook. That's how you should treat me right now.
In the before times, I ran a show called Not a Therapist because both of my parents are therapists. And I just thought it was hilarious that I was like the one who was not.
That is hilarious. So you guys break up. He starts dating your best friend, right? Clearly you guys are fine. But walk me through that. Like, did you have any feelings about that, or what was going on there?
Let me tell you a little thing about repression of feelings. I did. Like, I didn't know that they were dating until she, like, drunkenly one night called me and told me.
Right.
And at that point, I've always... At that point, I had feelings about it. I don't know why I wasn't more mad. I should have been mad, right? But we've been best friends for, at this point, like 9 years. At a certain point, you're like, well, yeah, here's my friends. And a boy seems like a really silly thing to lose 9 years of friendship over. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's like figure it out and let's deal with it. We weren't also living in the same city. She was like somewhere else. And so it's kind of like, I don't have to see it every day, right. Like whatever. And so this is crazy, right? I make the stupidest decision that has no forethought, no logic, nothing. And then somehow when my best friend starts dating him, I'm like, well, it would be unreasonable to lose a friendship over this. Like what? What is wrong with me?
I personally think that it's a very mature response. Also, here's the other thing, and this is what I was going to say to you, which I think is interesting about this whole dynamic. I kind of respect that you didn't get angry about it because it was very clear that relationship was not for you. It didn't bring out your true happiness. But, obviously they didn't end up together either, but it could have brought out her true happiness or, his true happiness. So are you... like, is it fair for someone in your situation to like stand in the way of that if they weren't interested in that relationship to begin with?
Yeah, I think I've always thought the whole rule of like you can never be involved with someone's ex is silly. I mean, you can't make a blanket rule like that, And yeah, what if they were happy and they ended up not being happy and he married this other woman, but like he dated her after me too, That's right. Like it's great. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, if I really love my friend and also if I really care about this person, the guy, like I want him to be happy. And if it's clear that it's not with me, then it should be with somebody. Right.
Now, the whole dating friends thing, there's the other side of it, right? Because that can get messy because if he had left you and you were really broken up about it, that's one case where I'm like, yeah, in that scenario, that's not cool. And I'm not saying you specifically, but I mean, that's not cool because if your best friend just got hurt by somebody, you probably shouldn't date them. That's where I'm just like, that's not cool. But it seems like you guys seem to have ended it with less passionate results, if you will.
Yeah, I think I was broken up about it, but not because I was broken up about him, but because I was just like, I think it was like I had that feeling that I have now of like, what was I doing? Like, why did I let myself do this stupid thing for so long? Why did I waste all of this time that I could have been like doing cool growth and like learning and like making friends and like living in Chicago when I grew up in like a small town? Like, why was I why was I wasting my time with that rather than all of the cool stuff I could have been doing?
Right.
When like, and so the broken up I felt, I don't think it was anything to do with him, because on some level, I think all along I knew. All along I was like, what are you doing? You know? And I did it anyway, because like, that's how being 18 works. And so when they got together, I was just kind of like, well, I mean, yes, of course, this obviously means I'm unlovable, but I mean, that shouldn't affect you, right? Like, that shouldn't affect like your ability to be happy. And this person is obviously not the one for me.
Right.
He likes golf. Of course he's not the one for me. Am I dating my dad? Come on.
I mean, isn't that the thing that people do? They try to find like similar qualities to their parents or something. I don't know. I read Oedipus Rex one time, all right? So I think I now can prophesize. Anywho.
Again, not a therapist.
Not a therapist. Okay. So obviously you've touched on a lot of this already, but just to put it into, a nice, neat little package, what are the elements of your story that you would change if you could change any of the details or facts about it?
I think I still would have hooked up with this guy in the beginning, because why not, right?
Yeah,
I don't think I would have not lost my virginity. That, like, virginity is a social construct anyway. Who cares, right? Mm-hmm. I would have not dated him for freshman year of college. Mm-hmm. I would have not done that. I would have not gone to Arizona. I would have not spent time on Skype. I wouldn't even downloaded Skype. I would have not done any of that stuff. I would have just ended it when I drove to Chicago, and that's that, And maybe we could hook up like on winter break, blah, 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 whatever. That sounds fun. But that's what I would have changed.
So walk me through what your life would have been like if you didn't do the long distance. So like, how are you different in college?
I mean, I think if I look at my sophomore year compared to my freshman year, it was so different. And I think it's part of it. I think that's the window into it, is like, oh, you could have fast forwarded this. You could have gotten through the previews. You know what I mean? Like, you could have skipped the previews and just gone straight to the good parts if you hadn't delayed yourself.
Right.
With this first year, What
were the differences, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I had a better attitude. Like, I just had a better, like, I was more in it, if that makes sense. So, like, I think when you're in a relationship with somebody who's not there, your foot's halfway out the door, because you're just not 100% there. And so why would you commit to any friendships? Why would you commit to anything if you've decided that like half of you is actually not where you want it to be, And so I was there. I like rushed to sorority. I made a lot of friends. I like had a great time. I made friends that I'm still friends with. I started leaving my house. That was great. My grades were good the whole time because, I'm me. Right. And I'm a classic overachiever. So like nothing bad happened to my grades, thank God. And but I just like had a life, I was like really involved. I ended up having a great college experience after that, because I think I decided to have it, and made a lot of friends. Also, like, I think the people that I was around my freshman year kind of sucked. I'm not friends with any of them from my first year still. Like, I think they were just like kind of vapid. Yeah, they were just kind of like vapid people. And I was like, oh, Sarah, your experience is actually a whole lot better when you find people who actually like share what you care about, And so I made a bunch of new friends, mostly through my sorority, that were like so nice and cool and like cared about people and like cared about doing good things in the world. And like we'd go to the soup kitchen together and we would like do cool things, and like we'd also get blackout drunk together. It was like such a great balance, Yeah. So I think that's what I would have skipped the crappy part, you know? I mean, it's still great to lose a lot of weight, but whatever. I would have done it, but been happy, you know?
Got it. So what you're telling me is I need to get my heart broken and then I'll start looking good. That's what I'm hearing from this.
Friends at home. That's the ultimate weight loss solution. Just, you know, cry a lot and don't leave your house.
You burn 20 calories per tear.
You know, marathon crying.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. So again, I know you've touched a lot about this, but I'm trying to, like, you know, wrap everything up nicely. So,
yeah, wrap it up in a bow, baby.
What do you feel are the long-term effects of the changes you would have made?
You know, it's funny because I went back and forth about this too. Of like, would my life be vastly different? And like, no, probably not. Like, I still got to hear. I still feel pretty good about the way my life has been. Like, you know, it hasn't been a total train wreck. And so I don't know that anything would be vastly different than what it is now. I think what anything that I've looked back on my life and regretted, which has been actually a fair number of things, and they've always been things where I haven't done something, right? Where I've like done something out of like fear or like the easy way out. I'm like, that was stupid. Why did you do that? Mm-hmm. Everything like that doesn't feel like it's actually changed the course of my life. And so luckily I didn't do like irreparable damage by like marrying this schmo, but mm-hmm. I think I just like lost a year, like a lot, like, and now I'm 33 and like every lost year or every lost minute feels sad, you know? Mm-hmm. And so just like sad for 18-year-old me of like, you could have done so many cool things and you could have like allowed yourself, like if I had just believed in my ability to be able to like get through something hard, mm-hmm. I could have gotten through it and I would have been fine and I wouldn't have had to do this stupid thing with this guy and waste my time. And I would have become the person I am now, maybe a little bit faster, you know? And that makes me sad that I didn't believe that about myself.
No, look, I get that. Wow. So I want to first and foremost say thank you for coming on the Revisionary podcast. I've really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me. This was such like now we have to hang out all the time. Okay?
All right, let's do it.
All right.
It's gonna happen. Let me we have a tradition on this podcast. At the end of every show, we like to end it by asking for a quick childhood story, you know, that puts a smile on your face or just like a happy memory that you hold that makes you feel warm inside when you think about it. Totally.
That's such a great thing. And what a nice shift. You know, since it's kind of on my mind, I don't know if this is the happiest or the only happy moment, but I think large scale, I've had a great life and I'm so freaking lucky. And even the dumb decisions I've made have turned out okay. I think one thing that brings a smile to my face is when I talk about like my best friends from where I grew up. We used to go to my friend Kathleen's cottage in Western New York. It was like so I grew up around Lake Erie and it was like a 4-hour drive to this cottage. And we thought we were so cool because we were like teenagers and we got the whole place to ourselves. And we would like bring a handle of vodka and we would like just cook our own meals and like go to the beach all day. Sure. And I think about how, you know, I talked about how that this story I told like delayed my development in some way. Right. And I think about like all the times that I spent there with those women who I'm still friends with now. They actually texted the group chat during this. And I think about how much those moments like made me who I am and like made me stronger and made me better. Right. And so that is something that I'm really lucky for.
That's beautiful. I'm glad I asked. All right.
Oh. Now I want to hear yours, but okay. Maybe not the point of the podcast, whatever.
Yeah, right. Catch me off guard. No, I'll tell you know what? No one has ever asked me, so I will share it with you. I will share it with you. for me, I think one of my greatest memories was as a kid, I really connected with my dad through baseball. That was like our thing. I remember so I'm a Mets fan, right? Like I grew up a Mets fan, unfortunately, suffering Mets fan or whatever.
I'm from Cleveland, so I get it.
Right. So, but growing up in the Bronx, that's not a normal decision to make. Like most people were Yankees fans, especially when I was a kid. That was when you had the Yankees in their prime, like 96, 97, 98. Like they were winning World Series regularly. But I remember my dad taking me out to the baseball field and walking into Shea Stadium for the first time. And that was back when the ramps went up. So, you kind of go up and you see the field and it's beautiful. And I didn't know it at the time, but my dad had taken me to batting practice, right? So during batting practice, these guys are just hitting home runs because, they're getting thrown meatballs, right? So it's easy. So I remember looking up at my dad in awe and turning to him and going, "Are these guys stronger than the Yankees?" And my dad going, "Yeah, they are." and that's kind of how I became a Mets fan. And I think that, like, to this day, one of the biggest things that my dad and I connect on is baseball. So I love talking to my dad and calling him and having conversation about baseball. And it all started with that one moment.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And now, I'm sure anytime you go there, it like brings back that feeling.
Oh no, absolutely. I think that's part of the reason why I love baseball so much. It's less to do with the act. I mean, yes, I love the sport, but it's less to do with that and more that it's a microcosm of my relationship with my dad. I mean, to this day, literally yesterday, I called him and we were arguing about baseball, and that's what we do. That is literally like our relationship. So.
Oh, that's so cool, and that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm sure a lot of people resonate with that story.
I hope so. Quick question, because I have to ask you, you've lived in both cities. Who has better pizza?
Oh, New York has better pizza.
Good answer. All right.
I never, deep dish pizza is gross. But Chicago has better live music. I'm going to go out and say it. Okay. Better live music. It's because there's big live blues clubs, which I have yet to find a good one here.
You know what? I'm not going to argue with you, mostly because I don't follow the live music scene in New York as closely as I should. So I'll give you that. All right. That's fine. All right. Now, the last thing is we like to highlight an organization or a charity at the end of every show. Is there an organization or a cause that you're very passionate about?
I don't really have a charity per se, but a cause that I'm really passionate about is educational equity, and specifically for BIPOC people, and specifically for BIPOC kids with disabilities. There's just a huge gap in the service that they get, and we know that kids with disabilities are not getting the same level of education as kids without disabilities, and that's just sad because they're capable of everything that their counterparts are capable of. And so I'm just really passionate about that. I think that there are a lot of systemic and structural inequities that exist in our education system. And so I'm super passionate about that. And specifically, because this is what I taught, but I taught pre-K for a long time. And so making sure that kids get preschool education is something that's really, really important to me and can be life-changing for a kid. And there are a lot of structural inequities that prevent kids from getting that kind of education. And so, if you can find a Head Start to donate to or something, do it because it matters.
Thank you. Wow. And thank you for that. And again, thank you once more for coming on the Revisionary Podcast. Do you have any last words for our listeners, for the Revisionaries?
This has been such a joy, and thanks for listening to my story. And also, if I had to share a moral of the story, because, as a teacher, we got to tie it up with a lesson learned, right? Believe that you can do hard things, and you can do hard things. Don't hold on to the stuff that'll keep you behind. Beautiful. Where can we follow you? Oh, yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at Sarah Garner Meow, because I like cats, and on Twitter at Sarah Meowvelous. So follow me. I tell a lot of jokes. They're mostly really sad right now, but I don't know. That's kind of everyone's vibe. Right. Well, I love that. See, you make me realize that my handle is just not that fun. It's not great because it's really hard for people to find me. So. From a business perspective, it's the worst. But from a like fun with purple hair perspective, it works.
Mine is just Juan Carlos comedy. It's so boring. All right.
It's good.
Kept it simple. All right. So we're going to let you go and take care. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
New best friend. Okay, bye.
The Revisionary Podcast.
So, moral of the story and the takeaway that I want everyone to walk away with is that I am not a therapist. In any way, shape, or form, I know nothing about therapy. I don't pretend to know anything about therapy. I do not give advice. Like, this is not what this is at all. All I am is a guy who has a microphone in his face and likes to ask a lot of questions, quite possibly because I'm nosy. So please don't look at it into any more than that. But I'm glad that we got to sit down with Sarah and talk about this stuff. Again, as I reiterated at the top, make sure you're following us on social media so that you don't miss out on anything. Because again, if you know, you know. And if you don't, then you don't know. And I want you guys to all be in the know for anything that is Revisionary Podcast related. Until next time, Revisionaries. And as always, thank you for listening.
This is the